If you don't have passion, you cannot get through the writing process. It is your resilience mode. It is your stealth mode. It is what keeps you writing and going, even when you're out of steam. It's the passion that drives the performance when you're writing a book. That's what keeps me going. So for me, it's still the business of being an author, because you need something to drive you.
Okay, hello there, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Business of Being an Author podcast. And today, what a joy for me, I get to interview, talk, have a chat with the lovely and stupendous Vanessa Vershaw. Hello, V, how are you?
Hello, Andrew. I'm very well, thank you. A beautiful day in Perth, and even more beautiful talking to you this morning. One of my favourite people on the planet.
Thank you so much, darling. And so we first connected a few years ago. Now, I guess it is. I seem to have lost the ability to track time frames, but it was a few years ago. And the reason we connected was to work on this extraordinary book of yours called Unreasonable Ambition. And a beautiful book, I might add. I love the inside covers. You know, let's not go down too deep a dive in the book nerd world. But to me, at the time, that was a big book in your world. It was reflecting your observations and realizations from working with a very unique style of leader. And you are a high-level exec coach, psychologist, and I'm going to say, a media person as well, or personality, if we want to kind of go that. It's always a little bit cringy if we go too far down that road, isn't it?
Yeah.
But since I've got to know you over the last few years of working on that book and another book that we're going to be talking about, I've always been really, really impressed by your high standards that you hold yourself to as well as your work. But you also bring in that human element. And I always think there's a wonderful Venn diagram that is the world of Vanessa Vershaw. And it's the human, it's the high level, it's the high performance. So writing a book called Unreasonable Ambition makes great sense. And of course, you're very global in what you do. You work and engage around the world. You've been invited and attended, of course, events like the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is an extraordinary thing and a reflection of who you are and what you do. You're in all kinds of media. You work with some of the most unreasonably ambitious people on the planet. So we roll all of that into one. Is that a fair assumption? Have I done a good intro?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure that I'm deserving of all that, but I'm very grateful for that intro. Yes. That's great synopsis of who I am, what I do, and where I play. Thank you, Andrew.
Fabulous. Okay. So tell me about unreasonable ambition. I was going to say reasonable ambition then. Like it's, like we got to aim higher than that.
Resist the urge. You can't be reasonable. You can't be reasonable.
Unreasonable ambition. What has it done for you, I guess, as a book? This is about that commercial element of being an author. What has it done for you, maybe personally, as well as for your business?
Look, I think, so I'll just start with from the business perspective. What it forced me to do was put all of my work and expertise transforming minds at scale, which is a skill set, into a way that I could articulate to people. So bringing that pragmatic, practical perspective. So writing the book helped me to organize my thoughts so I could teach and educate others, because I wrote the book to take it to bigger audiences, to get it into the hands of people, to help them. And so that was a big part of it. What it also did, and I had an interview probably about 6 months ago, interestingly enough, with one of the top executive recruitment firms in Australia. And I was talking to the managing partner, and her name's Julie, and talking about my resume and this, that, and the other. And she says, well, you don't really need one. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, this book is the best goddamn CV you could ever put in front of someone. Just leave the book behind. Don't worry about business cards. You don't need them. Leave the book. Send the book. And she's been right, because all of my work, all of my programs, all of my thinking really pivots around the core themes and premise of unreasonable ambition in terms of psychological transformation in turbulent times. So professionally, that's what I use it for. I use it to link it to my programming, make sure everything's consistent, so I've got clear messaging, but also to showcase what's possible, who I work with, as a kind of a CV and leverage point as well, and talking point. And people really love it. They really, really have loved that. So professionally, that's what it's done for me. It's leveraged, it's elevated, it's clarified. It's been fantastic, and it's opened many, many doors, which has been amazing. Personally, what it's done is it's taken away anxiety, actually, I would say, honestly. I think there's so much when you're a thought leader or a thinker, somebody who thinks differently a lot, trying to crystallize the messaging and the offering is quite tricky sometimes. There's so much swimming around in my head. And so personally, what it gave me is peace, less anxiety, a calm, centered place from which to continue building my practice, my conversations, and to serve the world and the people and planet. And that's really what it's done for me personally.
I love both of those answers, Vanessa. And I think that's both of those are the unexpected results of writing a book from a business of being an author kind of context. I love what you said there about unreasonable ambition on a lot of different levels, again, about how it helps you organize a body of work. It helps you organize your process to make sure that you're following that. It takes a lot of this kind of clutter. When we've been doing something for a long time and we've got a lot of information and there's a lot floating around, it forces us to put it into a structured way that others can learn from. And you go, wow, that's a great side effect of writing the book that most people don't know. I always say you become much more clear about your business after you've written your book.
Absolutely.
And that's a great product or side effect, I guess is a better term. But as you're saying there too, the second thing of that was this, like, who am I? Well, this book is a summary of that. And if you decide you want to work with me, here's the book. And we know a book has done its purpose when you're getting people contacting you saying, hey, I've just read your book, I'd like to work with you. Or it becomes the business card that you leave behind, that line that we use a lot. It's a business card on steroids. But to me, it's so much more than that as well. So thank you. That's two great insights. The third thing about that, about your personal development and what did you get out of the book, I think that's the underestimated part a lot of the time too, V, where I use that term, writing a book is the best personal development program you'll ever do. And it's like there's different things for most of us, but I love the way that you said it took away that fear. And that's again one of the reasons why I love talking to you, because of your honesty about how you're feeling, what's going on, what's impacting you right here, right now. Some big things in there with a book that are often unexpected, but how do you even figure all of that into your commerciality? It's like,
well, it's really interesting too. I think writing the book personally has made me a better practitioner from all of those reasons, but also even writing the book personally came from a question that I could have reacted very poorly to if I had a big ego. And so it was somebody asking me, why is it that you get to sit with all these, captains and queens of industry? Why do you get a seat at the table? Like, who the hell are you? And I don't think this senior leader meant it in that way, but it was really like, why you and not me is what I heard her saying. She was trying to understand how I've gotten to where I've gotten and gotten a seat at the table. And that forced deep introspection to me. Well, how is it that I get to sit here and overcome, so many fears and anxieties and imposter syndromes that come in and out of my mind, even now? How is it that I get to do that? And so that's the question that forced me writing Unreasonable Ambition, because I realised that actually unreasonable ambition is me.
Yeah, it's a big light bulb moment for you, right? Wow. Okay. Fabulous. Now, I want to change pace a little bit. One of the things that I talk about in the business of being an author as a book, and to people that I'm working with, on a regular basis, is what happens if we've got a book that we've written in the past and we go, well, it still has relevance, it still has something, but how do I make it fit? And I want to go back to the first book that you wrote, which is. And we have many a conversation about this book. Hold it up.
Oh, do I have to?
Show the world.
No. Okay, this is my bath book with the horror cover.
It's called Bitch Fight. For those listening in on audio, and there's two women literally having a bitch fight slapping each other on the front cover, and it's hilarious. Tell us what were you doing and what made that book appear at the time?
Oh gosh, to cut a very long story short, I'd spent 10 years working in Canada and just had some very tragic experiences where I just kept noticing women being bullied by other women at work. And this is at a time when, DEI, equality wasn't even on the agenda, okay? And I'm looking around me and I'm looking at these lives being destroyed by bullying and I'm thinking, well, why can't women actually get ahead? I'm thinking, well, how are they supposed to get ahead when they're being taken down by their sisters in business? Like, give me a break. And I also went through bullying from the day I was born. And so I started to put these stories together, my own personal history and watching what was happening at work, even leading to a tragic ending for one of my female leaders that I'd been working with. And I thought, somebody's got to do something about this. Somebody's got to talk about this. Sheryl Sandberg put out a book called Lean In that year, and not once did she mention the reason why women aren't getting representation at the top as other women. So I started looking into it and found this dearth of research actually saying, V, you're actually onto something here. This is the unspoken taboo subject and somebody needs to talk about it. And so that's when I decided to put pen to paper with a friend of mine who was already a published author 4 times, Dr. Jean-François Ducharme in Canada, and write this little book. Very interesting process. I actually won a publishing deal with a Canadian publisher, Transcontinental, out of Montreal. And here's what's interesting, what happened to me. When I finished the book, the transcript, we also translated it in French, so full French version as well, because it was for French Canadians as well. When the publisher actually went back and read the book, they canned the contract.
Wow.
So we lost the contract just like that. What do we do now? We thought, well, we need to look for another publisher. And the only publisher that I could find was the woman who first published the first edition, get this, I don't know if you know this, Andrew, of the 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Maybe why, because she ended up doing all the publishing and fonts, maybe why this woman has the horror font on the front here. I don't know. There must be an association. So that started my journey into self-publishing because at the time I had no choice, lost the contract. And as you can see, it's, look, even the font is, you need a magnifying glass to look at it. But I didn't know what I didn't know.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, the book then launched me on a trajectory that I could never have anticipated. Even this little bath book I call this horrible looking thing. And that's when I realized maybe it wasn't about selling books. Maybe it was about the positioning that the book gave me in an area that honestly I had no desire to represent or hang my hat on. It was just something that I'd written because it was important to be. But this ended up putting me on world stages, even with this little thing, becoming a gender equality advocate, a representative for women all around the world. And probably one of the things I'm most proud with this little crappy looking book was that it saved lives. I had quite a number of directors of clinical psychology practices all around the world, those types of positions, saying, I just want to let you know that I had quite a few female clients, in a very bad place. And after reading your book, they kept living. It gave them hope and confidence because of what was in it. And so this little crappy book did more good than I could have ever anticipated, even though it looks like hell on a stick.
But a little crappy book with a big impact, right?
With a big impact, yeah. Which surprised me.
Well, and it's such a great story around that as well. And I guess you got to move forward. How many years? When did we start talking?
So this was 2016.
Okay.
So moved to 2024, end of 2024. And I am, following all the World Economic Forum data, looking at how far we've come. And this article hits my inbox, basically saying that not only are we no further along in the gender equality, gender DEI advocacy situation, but we have fossilised. So we have stalled. We've gone back to pre-2019. And I don't know if you've read the book, maybe you haven't, Andrew, or care to admit it, but Eat, Pray, Love. I don't know if you've read that book.
No, but I've seen the movie.
Know of it? Okay, so, there's that scene where she's in the bathroom, she realises the relationship is over, she drops her and she's like, oh, no, I can't do this anymore. So I did that. I literally, involuntary Eat, Pray, Love moment, down to the floor. I'm like, this can't be happening. Look at all the spotlight on DEI since I wrote the book. Look at all of the things that are being done. Look at all the focus, and still we are worse than we were a decade ago. What on earth is going on? I thought, you know what? I'm feeling a resurgence coming on. I need to re-release this book and bring it into where we are now. Modernise it, redo all the research, figure out what the hell is going on 10 years on, how has this topic evolved, and dust it off and pull it out off the shelf. Terrified to do so, though, I must say, because this is not a topic, as I learnt over the last decade, that people warm to. Let's just put it out there. So it was terrifying for me to even think about not leaving it on that shelf.
Well, the other element of it, though, too, and one that was interesting for me, was that it no longer really represented you, from a brand, from the title, certainly not the look and feel of the book. When you just published this beautiful, 300 plus page, beautifully published book, you couldn't just go and reprint 500 copies of Big Fight and start promoting it, even having it on your website. Now, of course, the irony of that is not taking away from the content for 1 second. And I think that that's one of the key points here, is that if you've written, anyone listening, you may have had a book that it had impact, like exactly what you're saying there, Vanessa. It's still relevant, but it just either you've changed or there's been changes in that topic that have happened since you published it that still make it relevant, but you've just got to now make it fit for the new times, and you've got to make it fit for who you are. Because if you started promoting that book in its format there, you would have got attention, but what would it have done for your business? And that was kind of the conversations that we had on numerous occasions around, well, it's such a really strong title really about the topic, but you work in a sophisticated market with sophisticated people that are again don't want to be around anything controversial, etc. So it needed to be brought into 2025 Vanessa Vershaw world, and also the conversation needed to be brought into 2025. Now, 24, 25. Is that a fair kind of overview of where we're at?
100%, and I think you really nailed it there with those key points, because the other piece is the book no longer reflected not only where I was at, but also where the world was at and what the world needed from me. And I think, it's one of those ick moments, as they say on Love Island UK, where I was, rereading Bitch Fight and thinking, gee, I sound angry.
Right.
Like I do. And I'm not going to, I just had a client die. I had a client die. So you bet to hell I was freaking angry, I can hear the seething, and that's not where I am now. I'm not there. And I recognized also that this is a bigger conversation. This is about allyship. This is about, regardless of gender, how are we working together to create a world that we all want to live in for all of us? How are we creating workplaces where people can thrive? And that didn't go there here. It was more about the occurrence of the act versus actually looking at the bigger play around, what it means from a global impact. And I think that was moving it from the I to the we and the they was where it needed to go for the re-representation.
So one of the big things that you changed around that to do that, and this was a struggle point for quite some time, was you came up with a new title. And it was very hard because it is a strong title, right? There's no doubt about it, but it's the wrong title for you. It's the wrong title for the conversation now. That was an interesting kind of piece. So you were using that book, but it was getting a complete makeover. So now it's going to get a new title, a new cover, obviously. Majority of the work is still pretty much there. What percentage of the copy do you think is still the original copy?
It's an interesting question. I only, when I started on the journey, I thought it would just be tweaks, but actually the book has been almost rewritten. So I honestly, once you get, because you get better, Unreasonable Ambition, you get better, you notice all the problems, it doesn't sound right. So once I got to the end, I would say it was probably a 70-30, 70 new, 30 original themes, but no, it's been given an overhaul.
And this is a new version. And so the title there, the Sisterhood Paradox, for starters, was such a more sophisticated kind of a title that to me reflected you. I thought it was very clever when you came up with this. And the psychology of female aggression at work. So the positioning piece, the tagline there again was that wonderful, wow, okay, this is not a bitch fight story. And I'm not taking away from bitch fight because I think it served a great purpose and got the conversation out in the open and was relevant for you at the time. And it was good venting opportunity for you as well, but for and under your name on the cover of the book, you're an organisational psychologist and author of Unreasonable Ambition. So this all has to align and we have to go, well, this is a credible kind of a book. Again, the difference became that it was beautifully published and it's an incredible kind of read in terms of what you added was the depth that needed to be added to make it relevant for 2025. And then you've created a book that then sits alongside of, Unreasonable Ambition, big discussions, which is kind of your hallmark thing, is having big discussions about things that matter. And I look at that process of going from bitch fight to the Sisterhood Paradox. It's not necessarily an easy path, but I think also a lot of people kind of go down the same route as you, where initially we're going, probably a new cover, I'll make a few small changes. But the professionalism in you is what made you go, hang on, I need to make bigger changes in this because if I'm going to publish this book, hand on heart, it has to be up to my standards, up to your standards, up to that incredible piece there. So, why I'm kind of explaining this all out is because, again, anyone who's got that previous body of work kind of going, I've got this book, it worked, but what do I do with it? And the thing that I love and admire about what you did with this was you realized early on in the piece, this is not just a tidy it up and a little bit of a remake. This piece, the work is of value and it now needs to be enhanced. Is that a fair kind of take on the situation?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you made a beautiful comment before around your work needs to evolve to where you are as well. And, even in the content, even the techniques though, and, really offering my expertise. So the bigger lure for me, why did I write this book? Because I want to help people. Why did I write Unreasonable Ambition? Because I want to help people. Human suffering upsets me. I don't want people to suffer. I don't. And if I can help humans not suffer and find a better way to find joy and live a life that they want to have, then that's the point of both these books. Fundamentally, that's what the point. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. I want to help people have a joyous life. We get one life, and what are you going to do with it? And I do believe we have the power to move things in the direction we want to go in. But sometimes we get stuck, and things like the Sisterhood Paradox happen. For example, it was so interesting going through that process, Andrew, because what I also did differently this time is I engaged and interviewed many, many more females for this book than I did the first one. The first one, I interviewed a lot of men. I got the men perspective, some females, but I interviewed just a community of extraordinary women. And every time I met with one of these women, I was shocked and delighted at the impact that the conversation was having on them. Many of them were crying in my arms, saying, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for bringing this back out, because I never told anyone. And this is politicians, this is, CEOs of companies, because this is the impact this type of behaviour has on us. And it's not just, doesn't mean you're weak. Even the most powerful women that you can meet, and men, this is a real issue, and they still need help, even years later. Even the women that you see that look super together, not cracking, they are still suffering PTSD from this stuff. And so, it's so relevant. It's so relevant.
And anyone who's listening to this or watching this, you'll notice a common theme coming through from every one of the authors that I interview is their passion for their topic. And I've just got to kind of bring that up. And I laugh with my show producer, Chris, because we're saying we've got to keep them focused on the business of being an author, not about their topic.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry,
no, but the reason that I bring it up, and the reason, because we've had this conversation, is because if you're not passionate about your book, don't expect anyone else to be passionate about, that the passion is what makes you successful as an author. And that's why I was just smiling in the back of my head going, we've gone down the topic, and I love the passion that you share. I had Darren Finkelstein shares, that Maria Doyle shares, that I've interviewed so far, and other people, and it's like, yeah, great. Because I think it's easy to just get all commercial about the book. I want a book to do this and this and this and this. None of it will happen unless you've got the fire in the belly that you're showing. And that's, to me, so, so important. But I am going to bring us back to the commercial element of this, because that's what this podcast is about. So you redid the Sisterhood Paradox, or Big Fight, turned it into that. So what are you? It's only last year. What are you doing with that book from a leveraging point of view? Like, how does that fit into your kind of, your business? Does it fit into your business? Was it really more of just I need to keep this conversation going, and that's okay too, but how does it fit?
Look, I think it's both. For me, I didn't write it. I wrote it because I thought it was something that the world needed to hear. And what I find is, however, that as a result of re-releasing this book, I'm doing more and more work building programs, in-house programs for women to rise. And so when I run all women programs, so the more progressive organisations haven't canned them, hope the world's listening, and I'm brought in to do that really important and extraordinary work, I am representing this. And I've been asked to speak at in-house events. I give them to the women that I work with. I am coaching more women than I ever have before. And it's not something, it's not something that I've ever hung my shingle out about, because I don't want to niche into women only. I love working with men. And in fact, for most of my career, men have been my target, in the sense of, not my target, but they've come after me. They've been my key kind of clients. But I love it that what it's attracting is the right female client for me. So the right female client, the 1%ers female client, the unreasonably ambitious female clients, are seeking me out to be their coach and mentor in their career and in life. And that's extraordinary. That's what I wanted to do. Whereas before, that didn't happen. Now I'm meeting women of a certain ilk or ambition that actually want me to stand alongside them. And I'm really pleased to share that as a result of the book, I've had 3 emerging C-suite leaders go into CEO roles in the last 12 months. And I've coached them into that. It's all them. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm simply a light. And I just want to go back to what you said before, though, as well, about passion, because passion is commercial. And I disagree, and I'm going to share.
Okay, great.
I'll tell you why I disagree with some of it. Because if you don't have passion, you cannot get through the writing process. It is your resilience mode. It is your stealth mode. It is what keeps you writing and going, even when you're out of steam. It's the passion that drives the performance when you're writing a book, because it matters to you so much. It's like your resilience tool or edge. And so if I wasn't passionate about what I write, it's why I can't write about, I see colleagues of mine writing about whatever, like topics, and I won't even say. And I think, how do you do that? I couldn't. Personally, I couldn't. I need to really care about it. Maybe that's why they're millionaires and I'm not, Andrew. It's probably. But that's what keeps me going. So for me, it's still the business of being an author, because you need something to drive you.
Yeah, I agree.
During the tough times when you're writing. Because writing a book, as you very well know, can be very lonely. It tests every part of yourself. You are naked when you're writing. It is a really... internally empowering process when you get to the other side, but it is not easy.
No, it's not. I agree, and I love that. You are a writer. There's no doubt in my mind that you are. You're an author, you're a writer, and you're a very good author and very good writer, Vanessa. That's a given for me. And clearly you're passionate about the things that you're passionate about. And I guess the obvious question for me, it's always about playing a longer game as an author, particularly a commercial one, but still making sure that you're aligning with that topic that matters for you, that intersection on the Venn diagram again. So what I'm leading to is, what's your next book?
I knew you were going to ask me that. By the way, everybody, he hadn't given me the questions, but I could feel it coming on. The next book question. Look, absolutely passionate about the next book, and I've started to do my research looking at, and I'm just going to say this because I don't want to give it away. I don't know whether I should, and I don't really want to. But one of the things I've noticed is... I'm so sick of hearing about the war for talent. Oh, the war for talent, the war for talent. You know what? We don't have a war for talent, everybody. Hear me. We have an identification problem. We are hiring in and selecting the mainstream beige players and people into leadership roles that are not fit to lead the future organisations. They do not have the skills. They don't know how to play on the edges. They don't know how to make sense of the chaos. They keep trying to fit everything into a little box. And we need to go out and find the unicorns amongst us. And I don't just mean neurodivergent. It's not just neurodivergent. Everybody focuses on that. That's very important, and that's important to me. But it's the people with the portfolios careers, with the fluid intelligence, with the street smarts, the refugees who speak another language that's not English. All of these people that we discard and discount that actually have the skills and capabilities to lead us successfully into the future, because they love the turbulence and chaos, and yet we are screening them out. And so that's what my next book is about, and very much inspired by different experience that I've had where I myself, shame on me, recognised in a selection process of a non-executive director about a year ago that this guy whose resume was across my desk, in my mind I was thinking, oh my God, why the hell would we put him in as a non-exec of a pharmaceutical company? And then I met him and he was extraordinary. It was my bias and my limiting beliefs and my narrow point of view. And think about what I do for a living. I'm so ashamed. That was putting this guy and typecasting him into a mold. And I really thought, God, if I'm doing that, how is the rest of the world doing that? And what is the impact on all of us on that? So that is what the next book's about.
It's a shame that you're not passionate about it. You know, it's like that's the element. I think I should just rename this episode to the Passion Paradox.
Paradox.
But that is going to be a fabulous book, and we got something out of today's interview that I wasn't quite expecting, and that conversation around passion is such a big one. And I take your point on board about that it's hard to write a book. It's hard to be a writer without that. But just the depth and, again, that passion that you've taken to each of the first two books. And I've got no doubt that the third book is going to have the same Vanessa Vershaw passion to drive it. Fabulous. I'm really grateful to you, V, for giving us your time and being so open and honest. You know, even that last bit that you said there, that's a very, very humbling thing to kind of share. But it's, again, one of those attributes about you is always that you always lead with an open heart and like this is what I got wrong. This is where I kind of saw it. But this is I've got to now ask myself, what was my own bias about this gentleman? You know, that stuff is very good. And again, fits perfectly in the Venn diagram. We need the Vanessa Vershaw Venn diagram. It's got to come out. But just thank you so much. And folks, I'm going to say, look, reach out and connect with Vanessa. VanessaVershaw.com. You're pretty easy to find. Connect with her on LinkedIn. You can tell that she's an extraordinary person, incredibly smart, incredibly wise, I think is probably what I feel with you too, Vanessa. And I'm so grateful for you sharing just a little bit, a tiny, tiny part of your journey as an author. And today, that insight into the Sisterhood Paradox, formerly known as Bitch Fight, I think is really helpful to others, like amongst Vanessa just holding it up again.
4 books, Andrew. I know we're discounting Bitch Fight. 4 books. It's all right. I'm just joking.
Absolutely.
I don't mind. Let's forget about this one.
Thank you so much, V. I really appreciate your time.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Andrew.
See ya. Thank you very much for sticking around, and I hope you got great value out of this episode of the Business of Being an Author podcast. Now, I'd also like to say that, of course, there is a book out called The Business of Being an Author, and it's all about the things that we're covering on the podcast, and I think it's perfect for any of you who are aspiring authors ready to really leverage that book. If you'd like to know more about that, you can visit www.andrewgriffiths.com or www.theauthoracademy.com.au. We'll put contact details in the show notes, and I really look forward to your company on the next episode. If you've got an idea for an author that you'd like me to interview, reach out, drop us a line. Righto, folks. Thank you.